Hello, everyone. As we wait to get started, please add in your role, where you're joining from, and we're going to get started in a few minutes. Hey, everyone. While people continue to join, we're going to get started so that nobody wastes any time coming to this webinar on time. And just continue to put in where you're from and what is your role there. And I'm going to get started, get us going. Next slide, please. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to join us for this webinar. We have been hearing across the nation ever since the main parts of the pandemic ended, where we started hearing things like, oh, well, breakfast after the bell, that was part of the pandemic, right? And there's been a lot of turnover across the nation, and there's people who maybe haven't started breakfast after the bell, would like to. And so this webinar is specifically structured so that you will get the nitty-gritty, all the ins and outs of like what it takes to even get to the point of implementation. What does that look like? Who do you have to talk to? What kind of equipment do you need? Maybe what do the menus even look like? And how do you get participation up? So we're going to talk about all of that today with two of our amazing champions that I will introduce in a minute. My name is Dr. Janine Rios, and I work for the Center for Best Practices as one of the senior program managers that works very closely with school meals and breakfast. So here we go. Next slide, please. Just a little housekeeping. If you encounter any technical difficulties, just please use the chat box. And we have people within the organization who will be able to address your question, concern, or problem that you might be having. A recording of this webinar will be emailed to you along with the slide deck in the next few days. So don't worry about, I know I do during webinars, I'm taking copious notes and trying to keep up and taking pictures. And so no worries there. This will all be sent to you. And if you do have any questions, we are hoping for lots of questions. Do not feel shy. This is your time to ask questions. Please put those into the question and answer box throughout the webinar. And when we get to the question and answer section, if that question has not been answered, we will address it at that time. Next slide. So this is just a brief agenda. We're doing the welcome now. I'm going to do a little overview on breakfast breakfast after the bell. Then we're going to hear from our panelists, and we're going to have a discussion. And then there'll be time at the end for question and answer. Next slide. And I would be remiss if I did not highlight some of our upcoming webinars and projects going on. We have our next webinar specifically focused on stakeholder support and breakfast after the bell. So that is on September 26th. And then we're having our annual World Child Hunger Summit coming up this year on October 17th and 18th. If you have not already registered, jump on that, and we would love to have you. Next slide. So, what is breakfast after the bell? Why is it important? And what are the models? And basically, breakfast after the bell is incorporating breakfast into the school day. So after the bell has rung, having that meal served in a method that's going to reach more children. And we're going to talk about what those models are and what that looks like. And the first one is breakfast in the classroom. And that is usually when breakfast is served in the classroom and the students all get a meal and they're able to maybe the teacher will take roll and students maybe start some homework or some sort of maybe silent reading. And they eat their breakfast it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for them to, get their food and get going and just really get that whole process started. Because it's in the classroom, everyone's eating at the same time. No one feels, like awkward or different. So grab and go, kind of as the term states, the students grab their meal on the way to class or on the way to a central location where they will eat their meal. It's kind of like on the bottom picture there where the meals are already ready to just pick up and go. And then second chance breakfast, that's usually in high school and in middle school. And we're going to talk a little bit about, the reasons for that. And a lot of times students at the older ages are really sleepy in the morning. They're getting up, they're really not hungry or eating their breakfast. And so second chance breakfast is a time to open up the cafeteria or have breakfast carts during first and second period when students can, now that they're feeling hungry, go and grab their breakfast. And then they can go to the classroom or a common area. Sometimes the cafeteria is reopened or sometimes you have breakfast carts. And then what is the whole reason? What are the challenges with a maybe traditional breakfast in the cafeteria? And that could be anything from arriving late to school, missing your ride, or, just not getting there on time, or just the stigma of maybe their stigma about who's having breakfast, or maybe those are the kids that have free meals or reduced price meals, and there's stigma around that. That could be an issue. And as I mentioned, previous students in middle school and high school aren't thinking necessarily about eating the first thing in the morning. I know on the weekends, my youngster wakes up around noon. And so waking them up earlier, they're not necessarily ready to eat right then and there. And it could be the cafeteria location. It could be on the other side of where your first class is. And maybe students don't want to be late, or they just don't want to go out of their way to leave their friends, which is also a big reason, and miss that social opportunity to be with their friends. Next slide. So we have done some studies to look at, what is participation? Could it increase? Does it increase? And what we've seen is by looking at the average daily participation of free and reduced price breakfast over the average participation of free and reduced price lunch, what we've seen is the percentages have gone up to about 88% in breakfast in the classroom. For grab and go, 59%. And for second chance breakfast, 58%. So it's kind of seems like a no-brainer if you can get through all the logistics. It really helps to provide access to all students. Next slide. Another concern that we have been hearing about a lot lately and in the past, even before the pandemic, was chronic absenteeism. And that is when students are missing more than like 3 weeks of school per year. That's about 16%, or it was when this study was done, it was about 16% across the nation, which if you look at the numbers, that's about 8 million students. So it's can be a really huge issue. And the study that was done found that when controlling for all the other factors, when implementing breakfast after the bell at these schools, absenteeism decreased. And so there was, the students came to school more when breakfast was part of the school day. And so that's another reason for implementing breakfast after the bell. Next slide. So we want to do a quick poll and find out, everyone here on the call, where are you in your process? Are you looking at breakfast after the bell? Are you implementing? Have you implemented in the past? So we're just going to do a quick poll and see where everyone is at on that spectrum. And do we have any results yet? Okay. So the majority of people on this call want to learn more about breakfast after the bell for other reasons. And some are currently running a breakfast after the bell program, 23%. And some would like to start the program at 17%. And some have run a program in the past. So welcome to everybody. And I'm sure everyone will have a lot to learn from our amazing champions. We are going to start with Ryan Cengel. He is a director of food and nutrition services for the Manor Independent School District in Texas. Ryan has 9 years of experience in school nutrition and 6 years of experience as a classroom teacher. His educational background includes undergraduate degrees in culinary arts and culinary nutrition from Johnson & Wales University and a master's degree in education from North Park University and nutrition from Arizona State University. He's a licensed Texas teacher in science, health science, technology, and health. And he's certified as a nutrition education specialist through the School Nutrition Association. Ryan is also, this is something we share, Ryan, that we haven't talked about, a returned Peace Corps volunteer. He served as a health volunteer in Nigeria from 2004 to 2006, and he worked on nutrition, maternal and child health, and food and water security development projects. Ryan, thank you so much for all that you do, and welcome to the webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Janine, and thank you to No Kid Hungry. I appreciate you guys having me. Again, my name is Ryan Cengel. I am the Director of Food and Nutrition Services at Manor Independent School District in Manor, Texas. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit about Manor. Manor is located in Central Texas, just northwest of Austin. We have an enrollment of 9,550 students as of a couple of days ago. We have 17 schools, 1 pre-K center, 8 elementary schools, 4 middle and 4 high schools. And we just opened 2 brand new schools this school year, which I know that anybody that's on this call that has done that know how much work that is. We are CEP district-wide. We use the community eligibility provision to provide free breakfast and lunch to all of our scholars. And our demographics are 65% Hispanic, 20% African-American, 8% white, and 7% other. Next slide, please. And so meal programs that we run, obviously the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. So again, with CEP, we provide free breakfast and lunch to all of our scholars every day. And then we also took over, started doing the CACP at-risk snack and supper program at all of our campuses this school year. And these are a small list of the many programs that we provide after-school meals to and after-school snacks to as well. So do our best to make sure that our scholars get access to all the food that they need to be successful in and out of the classroom. Next slide, please. Okay, additional programs that we do. We have a pretty robust farm to school program. We're very lucky to be in the great state of Texas, where we have year-long growing seasons and access to good quality fruits and vegetables throughout the school year. So as of last year and this year, probably go up a little bit. 30% of our produce, fruits and vegetables are grown in Texas. We get some of that through our produce distributor, some of that through purchasing from small purchases from local farms. We work with a couple of other produce distributors and through DoD and farm to school commodities as well. We, as of last year, for the first time in the district, serve locally raised chicken and bison. Last year, the chicken comes from Greener Pastures Farm, which is just outside of Manor in Elgin, Texas, which is about 20 minutes down the road. It's a really good quality chicken, great farm. It's a regenerative farm. They do great practices, environmentally friendly, great quality. They serve actually some of the best restaurants in Texas and even outside of Texas. So we serve some of that to our students, which is great. And our kids absolutely love it. And then last year we also served bison for the first time. And we served bison tacos that we made with bison from the Texas Tribal Buffalo Project, which is a small local farm run by the Lapan Apache tribe just outside of Manor. And so they provided us with we purchased some buffalo meat from them, which we actually got a really good feedback from the kids, is if anybody's eaten bison before. It's a little gamey, but our kids really liked it. The only complaint that we had was that it was a little not spicy enough. And we're really big into scratch made or speed scratch, and over 50% of the entrees that we serve to our students are speed scratch. And we have self-serve salad bars in all of our campuses as well. All right, next slide. Okay, so participation rates, our average daily participation breakfast is about 62%, and lunch is 78%. And pretty high participation rate. We're still working on breakfast, as everybody probably is. That's, I think, one of the harder ones to get your meal participation up. And so last year we served over 2 million meals over the past 3 school years, and this year we're on pace to actually serve quite a bit more than that this school year. So our enrollment's up a little bit, and our meal participation is up a little bit, and obviously CEP helps a lot with that as well. So, all right, next slide, please. All right, so breakfast in the classroom. 2 years ago, we were doing breakfast in the classroom in all of our elementary campuses and our pre-K center, but last year, for a variety of reasons, we are unable to do that. So we cut back to only the pre-K center, and then we've added a couple of our elementary schools this year. And so we're gonna slowly but surely work our way back to all of our elementary schools. But if you heard some of the data earlier that Janine was offering, but I can give you some anecdotal data from Manor. Is when we went from breakfast in the classroom back to regular breakfast through the line, our breakfast participation went down quite substantially. So I took all that information to our school board and to our superintendents and our district leadership to let them know that, hey, a lot of our students are not eating breakfast any longer. So we need to move back to breakfast in the classroom and breakfast after the bell, so we can get our meal participation up, and our kids can eat breakfast every day, which as we know, improves their academic achievement and improves their overall health as well. So standard operating procedure for BIC for us: the teachers pre-order the week before. We give them an order form to fill out. They deliver that to the food service manager so that they know the week before how many meals that they're going to have to serve the next week. It helps them with ordering and just preparing and getting ready for the next week. We then package all of that stuff in carts, bags, and coolers, and deliver that to the classroom prior to school start, and leave that out for the teachers. And those carts, once meal service is done, carts are picked up after meal service and all of that stuff done. And the next thing happens over and over every single day. And so the teachers are responsible for lots of things. One is the pre-ordering form, also the counting and the claiming of meals, making sure that the students ate, that they're calculating how many students ate each day, that they're making sure that each of the students take the what is a reimbursable meal, that they're taking the three items, and at least one of those is a half cup of fruit or fruits or vegetables. So they've got a lot of work to do. So how we get buy-in from them is is we do feed them for free, so they can eat breakfast for free each day too, which is very helpful. It allows them to eat lunch or eat breakfast with the kids each day, which I think builds that classroom community and all of those things that they talk about on the educational side of things. All right, next slide, please. All right, so see, these are some of this kind of what it looks like. We got these carts, coolers, and bags. You can see the bags, the see-through bags, those have our fruit in them. The red bags have our hot entrees and cereal in them. The coolers have our milk and juice. And so we deliver those to the classroom and drop them off. We label them with the teachers' names on them. And those are then dropped off for there. We did use a nice robust grant from No Kid Hungry to purchase those carts and the coolers and the bags and all of the equipment for breakfast in the classroom and breakfast after the bell. You'll see our breakfast carts as well. I'd really highly recommend if you're looking. I know everybody's probably struggling with funds now with our meal reimbursement rates going down a little bit this year, with our everybody's food costs going up, with equipment costs going up, with labor costs probably going up for you. So probably looking for some additional money to pay for equipment and stuff that you need. I can't stress how great the process is for writing grants and everything from No Kid Hungry. Very, very easy application process and reporting process and everything. So highly recommend it. Next slide, please. Okay, so breakfast after the bell. So basically how that works is in elementary school, we keep the cafeteria line open late for students. We also deliver grab and go breakfast that are left in the front office for the front office staff to give students as they come through. We'll also do and bring some of the carts to the front office, and our staff can be there to serve meals to the students as the late students come in. We've had a lot of problems with not having enough bus drivers in Manor, which could possibly be an issue that you're dealing with in your school district. So, we have a lot of students that are late because their parents are dropping them off late or the buses are dropping them off late. So we always want to make sure that we can provide a breakfast for those students later in the morning. And so for BIC, what we do is we leave the bags in the classroom and we don't pick them up until the middle of the period or later in the period or even after first period. And our staff will then go pick them up. And so those late bags will be able to accommodate those students that are late so that everybody can get a breakfast every morning. And then if you get a student that's late, even later after that, and that student didn't eat, we always allow the teachers or administration to call us and call the cafeteria manager to deliver a meal down for that student so that they can make sure that they eat. And so for secondary campuses, we have breakfast carts. And so we have those breakfast carts and we bring those to areas where students are generally congregating. That might be places not in the cafeteria, near the gymnasium or near the front office or even outside. And we'll bring those and allow the students to take a breakfast from there as well. Next slide, please. And so these are the picture of the breakfast carts that we got. These really nice Cambro breakfast carts. And again, this was paid for with grant from No Kid Hungry. And this has been very, very successful. We're not serving a ton of extra breakfasts every day, but it could be a couple of dozen or maybe even 100 or more breakfasts every day. And if you add that up over the course of the school year, you're going to have a significant increase in your meal reimbursement for it. And also you're going to be feeding a lot more kids, which is what we most want to do. Okay, so that's generally our practices for BIC and breakfast after the bell. So let it on to Warren. Oh, well, sorry, I forgot one thing. Getting buy-in. So one thing that's important, people working in education are very data driven. So you want to make sure that you have data for them. Share any research about the importance of breakfast and eating school breakfast and academic achievement, classroom behavior and health. I know No Kid Hungry has a lot of that. FRAC has a lot of that. School Nutrition Association has that. There's a lot in your school. Your state agency probably has a lot of that data to give to any teachers or administrators or central office administration that that needs to hear those types of things. Making sure that you're participating in school events. That could be anything after school, that you can go and set up a table and let parents know. Another thing would be doing participating in your district shack as well, and letting them know about the importance of breakfast. Communicating regularly with district leadership. I can't stress that enough. Always sharing all of your successes with all of the stakeholders. So your parents, your students, your teachers, your administration, everybody. Just let them know all of the successes that you're having from your BIC program, Breakfast After the Bell, or just your program in general. They like to hear those things. And the more information that you can give them, and the more success that you can share, the more likely it is that you're gonna get buy-in from them. And again, data is very important for school administrators. And so the more data that you can have to give them, the more likely it is that you're going to get buy-in from them. All right.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And sorry I mispronounced your name. It's Ryan Cengel. And thank you so much for all of that. And I definitely have a craving now for a bison taco. Very curious as to what that would taste like. Our next presenter is going to be Warren Ryan. And just a little bit about him. After earning his Bachelor's of Science in Culinary Management from the Art Institute of California in San Diego, he entered into the world of luxury hotels to explore his passion for cooking and creating memorable experiences through food for more than 10 years. He worked in luxury hotels until becoming an executive chef of a family-owned steakhouse, in which his team thrived while receiving accolades and awards as one of the best steakhouses in the area, and in addition to one of the top 100 restaurants in the Inland Empire. He continued his journey with food, and he joined School Food Service in 2018 as their nutrition services chef, helping cultivate the menus using out-of-the-box thinking while focusing on what is best for students. And now, as the assistant director, he continues to use the same commitment that he's had for what's best for the students. And he continues to explore new ideas, attends and participates in programs and trainings to test new products and elevate the menu offerings. Definitely makes me want to go to your district and just go there for lunch. And so I'm going to pass it to you, Warren. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Janine, and I'm really honored to be here. It's been a long time coming. I would like to say that being with San Bernardino, we're in San Bernardino, California, and so we are the 7th largest district in the state of California. So we are not some small district, so it's a big undertaking. So next slide. So as Janine said, as I started as the chef, and so as starting with the chef, we have seen some change, but a little bit about San Bernardino City Unified is currently we have about 46,500 students that are enrolled. We do have 74 school sites, ranging from elementary, middle, high schools. We have adult schools. We have cafeterias in our adult admin buildings for purchasing meals. We do offer breakfast, lunch, and then snack or supper at every single school site. We've actually been pushing this year to have 100% supper. And so that goal will be reached by January, where we will have all 69 sites that are eligible to use a CICFP program as an at-risk serve supper. And so that's been tremendous in providing the need for our students. We are 100% CEP. So even being in California with universal meals, we're also CEP. So every student eats all 3 meals each and every day. We have approximately 425 employees when we are fully staffed. I would love to say that we are fully staffed, but I'm sure like many of you, I sit with about 100 vacancies and about 40 call-offs each day. And so it is possible with less people, but we do have a central kitchen. And so our central kitchen does allow our menu to compose of 40 to 50% scratch-made entrees. It allows us to process things and to purchase them bulk. We also offer breakfast in the classroom at 5 elementary schools. And then just last week, we were able to launch breakfast after the bell at 1 high school. In 7 days, we were able to increase the participation by more than 70%. And breakfast after the bell for our high school is only being offered for 4.5 minutes. And so in 4.5 minutes, we have increased and been able to provide meals to an additional 70 to 100 students each day. And so it's been an amazing feat by my team. I would love to say that I single-handedly did it, but that would be wrong because they would not even notice that I was missing because they do all the work. So you can go ahead to the next slide. So just to give you a grasp of what San Bernardino does is we do about 12,000 breakfasts every single day. We're serving about 30,000 lunch and 3,800 supper. So this is across all of our campuses. And before we get to comparing breakfast in the classroom, I know everyone always wants to know is, well, how do you get it started? How do you get your buy-in? The first thing I would suggest is really patience is the key. Is when I started with the chef, we had 0 sites doing breakfast in the classroom. Everyone said, well, what about the union? What about the parents? What about cabinet? What about change? Everyone is afraid of change. And until we get to an out-of-the-box thinking and until we figure out how to get buy-in and get them on board, it's challenging to make a difference. You know, through the pandemic actually is what helped us make that change, is because my district had to rethink 15 to 20 years of habits. And when we changed these habits and when we looked at different alternatives, as we came out of the pandemic, we had one principal who said we wanted to keep all of our students kind of confined. Well, we didn't know when we were going through the waters, and they launched breakfast in the classroom without telling us. And I was like, wait, how did this happen? And so we go, and all of a sudden we get a call from it's our Teachers Association president, and they said, hey, what are you doing? And we're like, what are you talking about? We're not doing anything. So we worked through the challenges. We got them all the support they needed, thinking that this courageous principal would back down. She never backed down. She actually also served lunch in the classroom. And so the long story of navigating through that year, we made sure to recognize all of her efforts, and we brought those efforts to the board. We brought them and recognized what she did, the change in the participation that allowed from it, the decrease in absenteeism, the decrease in the disruption. She had less students that were coming to the school nurse with a stomach ache. Learning was a little bit better. Behavioral disruptions were a little bit better. And even the custodian said the cafeteria was cleaner because now they're only mopping 4. They're only mopping when we're serving lunch. They're not mopping the MU room 4 times in the day or 3 times in the day. So it's a little bit easier for them to manage that. But so as we continue to push, we would continue to go to our cabinet members and our board, and we'd ask them. And finally, we got a few more that would say yes. And so we slowly put out our feelers, and we started with our community partners. You know, we are very fortunate being in Southern California. We have a lot of districts that are near us. And so we've partnered with Rialto Unified, who serves breakfast in the classroom at every single one of their sites at elementary, middle school, and high school. And so we partnered with them to take our teachers and our principals and our union leaders over to see what the process looked like, to let them see it firsthand instead of watching a video, which they're great if you don't have anyone nearby. Videos are great ways to showcase what is being done and how it's being done. But when they were able to see the students enjoy the meals, and they were able to talk to the teachers one-on-one and really get their feedback. And the director at Rialto was very great at pairing us with a great teacher who was 100% advocate, but in the same tour, she paired us with a teacher that did not advocate for the program, but would never let it go away because she can see the difference and the improvement in the behavior of the students over the course of her time there. And so after that buy-in, we're talking 5 years of patience, 5 years of continuing to be flexible, is really getting into the nitty-gritty and figuring out your plan that works for you. And so with every launch, we start with a cookie cutter approach, knowing that the cookie cutter doesn't work, is that you have to be flexible, is that we go in with an open mind and we involve every stakeholder that is there. And so all of our schools have their own cafeteria site lead. They all have a principal, some of them have a VP or a program facilitator. And then we include the custodian. And we walk through what a launch would look like, what this would look like, and we let them help determine how we would provide support. So at San Bernardino City, we provide trash bags for every classroom. So every day, an extra trash bag is provided by our team for just the breakfast club trash. We provide sanitizing wipes that are safe for kids and food service safe so that the students now clean their desks right after they're done eating. We provide vacuums to be able to clean up little spills. That way then, as a teacher and as an administrator brought up concerns, we were able to find a way to kind of mitigate those so that it wasn't the reason why. And so my team, my director, and all of our upper management team, as we talked about, is what is the sword that you're going to die on? Like, are you really going to not let a program expand because of, $100 a year in trash bags? Is the student's meal worth it? And so this year we successfully launched 4 more breakfast in the classroom sites. So we're now up to 5. We actually have 3 that are pending launch dates right now, which will bring us up to 7. But with the data that I have is, so before breakfast in the classroom, our average elementary participation sat between 20 and 40%, depending on the administrator in charge. So some administrators and principals, they're very open and they know their needs and they're showing movies and they're opening their campus early and they're kind of figuring out within their own budget. Whereas others are, the cutoff time and the teachers are here at 8:30. I can't have anybody on campus till 8:30. But after breakfast in the classroom, we saw a dramatic increase. We went above 75% with the exception of one school. And so we're still working through whether or not it's still tardies. I can't say that all absences or tardies would be corrected, but it definitely helps because I don't know about your districts, but in San Bernardino, the elementary kids don't drive themselves to school. And so they can't control whether or not mom or grandma or their aunt or uncle worked late, or, they can't control if they needed more sleep or what's going on in their home. And so it's really like the push that we have is that it's not fair to kind of penalize them. And so if a student is late and breakfast is already finished, then we've let that decision up to the administrator of how they want to handle providing them with meals. So some send them just to us into the cafeterias, in which case then we provide it. Some straight from the office, they just say, hey, go to the cafeteria, grab your meal, and then they still get to go and eat it in class without missing any of that time. And so, as we continue to look, it's really important to stress that you only need one champion to start. I was discouraged within my 6 years thinking, oh, well, how are we going to turn all 74 sites? How are they all going to make it? Well, you don't need 74. You just need one to start. And as you get one, they all get to see it. And so my meetings that I'm having now as we continue to try to launch and expand the program are a lot easier because they're like, oh, well, Mrs. So-and-so's doing it? Oh, I have to go see her. She's on my cluster team. And so it makes your next sale so much easier and so much more fluid and so much more consistent, is because now you've done it and you've got that opportunity and you have that experience under your belt. So next slide. And so the method that we use is that we have a couple different methods that we've offered. The primary method is so we use 2 different bags. So we do have a hot and a cold. So the hot bag is the red bag, and then our black bag is our cold bag. So any cold or room temperature components would go in that. They are put on little hand trucks. I will tell you is that we purchased these bags. They are not my favorite. So I always recommend sampling all your bags, because we are trying to switch bags again, because the sturdy and the stability matter. And so one of the methods we use, and what you can see in the pictures, is student-led. And so we encourage our administrators and our teachers to nominate Breakfast in the Classroom champions. So before your first bell rings, we're talking school starts at 8:50. So at 8:45, the first bell rings. Those elementary students already know who they are, and they go to the cafeteria and they grab their breakfast, and you'll see them wheeling these carts to their classroom, so that by the time the teacher brings the other students to it, they are ready to get their meals. We also allow and encourage teacher participation in how they want to hand out the meals. And so we do have signs letting them know, here's what's required. We give them a training. Their only role is to make sure that they do take it all, and that they do mark on our tally sheet how many meals were served, and then what they want for the next day. You know your students, you know whether they like it. It also helps decrease waste. And so here you'll see the students are gathering it themselves. We've observed classrooms where the teachers like to hand it out. We've observed it where they like to review the labels and use that as part of it. But 4 of the 5 schools, the 4 that launched this year, is they take that opportunity to do a lot of social emotional learning, where they can work through it. But they've also been able to educate in manners and good heating habits and how to properly clean your desk. So as I mentioned, is we do bring trash bags. So every teacher has a trash bag, so it's not commingled with your trash in your classrooms. So we worked with the custodian then. And so we asked the custodian is, where do you want the trash? And so some of them have a central trash can right outside the door. Some of them lay it onto the pavement. Either way, the trash is separated. So instead of doing 6 really heavy trash cans or 4 really heavy trash cans in the empty room, they're able to take their trash can or their elephant and pick up the trash. And then cleanliness was always a factor. So we do have child safe food grade sanitizing wipes. And so we provide enough that every student gets one. And so when they're done eating, they're going to wipe off their own desks. You know, I would be lying if a spill never happened, but that's why we provided vacuums. And so far, we haven't had too many complaints that elevated too far. But I know every time we go to a management meeting and we interact with our teachers union president, they are on board and they're trying to find principals that have great relationships with their staff to be able to launch and really progress and move forward, because we're here to do it for the kids. You know, as you look at anything, is we have to be willing to change quickly. You have to be willing to start very quickly, because I'll tell you is that had I waited, some of these principals would have been like, nah, but many of them were willing to do it because they were doing it together. And we have to remember that school nutrition doesn't just fit in this tiny box. Like, we always try to use regulations and everything to say, hey, we can't. But how do we figure out how to say we can? Because every student matters, you know. And then as you go through it, is have your facts ready. You know, if you can tell them what they were doing and how many kids aren't being fed, and you can use that data to support the true need, they can't say no. And the last thing we did is our human resources team always has a struggle with our short hour employees. And so they're always trying to convince us to increase our short hour employees. But we always have to say is, well, who's going to pay for it? They said, well, you are. I'm like, well, I can't increase everybody's hours without serving more meals. And so we have an understanding. And as we launch Breakfast in the Classroom, we increase the short hour employees to support that program. And it pays for itself. Not only is it paying for the improved morale of our staff, the lower turnover for our staff, but it's also paying to improve the lives of all of these students, you know, and they look forward to having breakfast. The first couple of weeks are rocky, but I'll tell you, it's worth it in the end. I didn't think I'd be here today to be able to share it, but I would say within the next 5 years, San Bernardino will be hopefully 100%. So I think that is all I have.
Thank you so much, Warren. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information, all of that just experience that you both have been through. Something that I keep hearing from administrators, from school nutrition professionals who implement breakfast after the bell, who have success with it, is that you have that attitude of, we're going to feed the kids, like we're going to find a way. It's this can-do attitude of, there are going to be challenges, and nothing really good and important is ever easy. And what I hear y'all saying is, you found the challenges, you worked around them, you worked with who you had to work with. When it meant having patience for 5 years or more, you had patience as you continued to move the initiative with who you could talk to or who was interested. So just so much great nuggets that you all shared. We do have some questions that have come in, so we're going to get to all of the questions in this last 15 minutes. And I agree with Cristobal, who put incredible testimony. Thank you for sharing. My hope has been revived. And that is the thing, just what you shared, we both shared about like having that model or having the peer-to-peer, it really inspires others to take that next step. And everyone who's on the call right now, all 100+ people, you have Ryan, Warren, ourselves as resources. If you want to get connected, if you have questions, we have, resources that I'm going to share in a few minutes as well before we get finished, but you're not alone. So let's do this together. Let's reach out. Thank you for coming to the webinar to ask your questions, to gain the support. And we're going to start with the first question is, and I'll put it out to both of you. What if the time breakfast is served after the bell is close to the time for lunchtime? What are the students less inclined to eat lunch? And I will let either or both of you answer.
I haven't really noticed a difference in our meal participation rate at lunch when we do breakfast after the bell. So it's far enough away. They're kids; they'll eat all day if you give them food. So you just gotta bring it to them. But I haven't noticed any difference in our meal participation at lunch because of it.
So I would agree with what Ryan's saying is we didn't notice because on Mondays our high schools have late start. And so it does push that second chance breakfast a lot closer to lunch, but we don't notice that decrease in participation. But we do try to be mindful of that. And that now we're talking is that as we progress and we push that time forward, it's longer that the kids aren't going to eat. Is that we understand that this may be the only meal that the students are getting. And so when we looked at second chance, we tried to get it as early as possible within the administrator's flexibilities.
So thank you for that. We have a question that is pertinent to union states, union districts. I feel like that's you, Warren. The question is, how do you prevent teacher union organizations to stop these types of efforts when you're trying to implement breakfast in the classroom? It seems that by adding a task to a teacher affects teachers' instructional time. This can be a major barrier for our district and has blocked us to implement breakfast in the classroom. It sounds like you've worked through some of those challenges, Warren. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about that?
So I'd love to say that there's anything that I could do or say to prevent a union from blocking it, but it's finding that one voice, finding possibly a smaller school where So one of the sites that we're in the process of launching, they actually brought a union rep to try to stop us through the launch meeting. And so we had a great partner that was there with us, actually conveniently from No Get Hungry. And right then and there, they were able to go to a vote and say, well, let's see what your members really have to say. And so the 12 teachers, because this is a relatively small campus, we're talking, there's only an enrollment of about 300 kids. So we're talking 12, 15 teachers. They were able to find a way to come to a vote right there. That way then those that were involved and those that wanted to do it had their voice still. Sometimes in that sea of a very large group, it's easy to get lost because a lot of times the most vocal are not the ones that are vocal towards advocating for your program. They're the ones that are advocating towards, hey, less work. But we really just have to sell the program, walk them through it, show them. Like, and that's where we started is we showed our union leaders a program that was already functioning. So we were able to tour them. We sent them videos. We front loaded with the information so that they could process. And then we allowed them to help the selection process of who to start with.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Ryan, I'm sorry if I assumed that you're not a unionized school.
I know we do have a union here.
Uh-huh.
They're not as powerful as they probably are in California, being we're in Texas. But one of the reasons that we did stop BIC last year at all of our campuses because the union did have some complaints about the teachers not having enough, not instructional time, but time to prep and plan in the morning. So that's one of the reasons that we stopped. So I kind of went to our superintendent and our school board and brought some complaints there, but we eventually kind of worked a lot of that stuff out. It wasn't generally the teachers that were complaining, like Warren said. It's generally the negative Nancy's who's going to be the most vocal on issues like this. So just kind of have to keep moving forward and doing what you can do. And you know, there's going to be some obstacles and there's going to be some challenges. You just kind of have to move forward with it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So can you share some techniques that you put in at the high school is a question that we got in. I'm imagining this relates to process and participation.
So I can go ahead and share my experiences, especially because we just launched one high school. What we did is we do a breakfast after the bell or a second chance breakfast during a passing period as a grab and go offering. So we met with the principal and she was okay with them taking the meal and then whatever they can't finish, bringing into the classrooms. And so we worked every school site that we do any change to that's outside of something that we would call traditional services. We work with the administrator to make sure, hey, these are the effects. What are your parameters? Where can we set up? And so like in Ryan's presentation with the breakfast carts, is we have those carts that we place on our campuses for lunch. We never use them for breakfast because we have a lot of employees that are like, oh, well, I can't, I don't have the time, the students don't want. So we're trying to remove that stigma. And so they roll 2 of them out during their first passing period. And they have everything bagged up, ready to go. And at our high schools, even though we're 100% CEP, we are still putting in numbers for program integrity. And so we have 2 different carts with 2 teams and the kids are able to just go and take it. They get what they want. We're providing a limited menu from what was served in the morning, because what we don't want is we don't want them to ever feel like they're being punished because they ate an hour after everyone else. And so if a homemade breakfast burrito, what was offered, then that's one of the choices for them to have before. We do limit it because we do understand that there is literally 4.5 minutes. The principal said, hey, you have 5 minutes and you cut it off. No one can be late because of you. And we said, yes, ma'am. And so it's definitely trial and error though. Every day we made a tweak and we made a change to be able to support what the program needed and what the kids needed. And so.
Awesome. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do breakfast in the classroom at any of our high schools, but we do the breakfast carts we do at our high schools. And yeah, I mean, just finding where the kids are at. We did have some complaints from principals about the kids being late to class, things like that. So just have to try to do your best and organize things so that the kids can get their meal and move on from that point and do it as quickly as you possibly can. And again, we're CEP, so it's a little bit easier for us. So we don't have to have our students, enter numbers at the POS or anything like that. So we don't have to track a meal, by student. So it does make things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that exact question, we have a question that came in and they're looking to, if you can share maybe your experiences with non-CEP districts that have implemented breakfast after the bell. Do you have any input on counting and claiming and practices. I'd like to see best practices in counting and claiming from non-CEP schools. So anything that you have heard, have seen that you could share. And if anyone is on the call who has implemented breakfast after the bell, non-CEP schools, please feel free to share your experience in the chat as well.
Yeah, no, when I worked for Austin ISD, we had some schools that were non-CEP that we did breakfast after the bell at, and we just had iPads out at the kids, and so we would just pull up on there to get the the kids to put their numbers in and go from there. I know it does make things a lot more challenging. Just another reason we all need to be advocating for universal free meals.
Yes. There we go. Ryan, Warren, I'm sorry, having two Ryans within the computer.
That's okay.
Ryan.
So we have been 100% CEP since I joined the district. And now within California and universal meals, it's not something that we typically worry about. But that is part of where one of our policies, especially towards field trips, and why we still collect numbers is we do it for program integrity to make sure we're not doing duplicate counts.
Yeah.
And so while our elementary schools, because we have less points of sale, we are able to do a tally or a clicker count. But middle schools and high school, we offer so many points of sales that we remain within rosters, and we remain within POS count. And so although hard to count day by day, is you can still do roster sheets like you would a field trip, and they would just have to check it off, making sure it's not to be confused with an attendance sheet, but then you can still run it through the system and go through that and make sure that they're prepared.
Thank you so much for that. And I know it's hard to believe, but our time is winding down very quickly. So I wanted to ask one last question of each of you. What would be your, I guess, parting tips? I want to I don't even know, I want to roll in your why with your advice to other districts who are starting this. What would you say?
Like Warren said earlier, I would stress patience. You're not going to be perfect from the get-go. You're going to make mistakes. Mistakes happen. And just move forward as best you can. I'd reach out to neighboring school districts that are doing stuff like this. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. I can provide you with any information that you need. Patience, just like everything else. You have to just move forward and reach out for best practices from neighboring districts, No Kid Hungry, and all the other organizations that are out there that are working in school nutrition. It's a lot of, no matter what you're doing, there's always going to be somebody out there that's already tried to do what you're trying to do and can give you what their best practices are, or what made them fail or what made them be successful.
Thank you.
And
Warren?
as you add in patience, the one thing I would say is remember to start small. We get so lost in how vast our district is, or how many schools we have, or what we do. But remember, it's all it takes is one great champion. And so as you work towards one champion, it could be someone that someone that you've interacted with or been able to provide different guidance or support. That one teacher that you always do favors for, possibly getting them to where you can start, easing them into it, and it's okay to fail. Often we go through all of these webinars and we look at best practices, and people don't mention that when it took me 5 years, we got told no that many times. We can talk about great athletes and great authors that were turned down by publishers. Look at Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school team. Look at J.K. Rowling, who was turned by how many publishers. Had they given up, where would we be today? And so don't give up. I know it can be frustrating, it can be infuriating, but remember our why you joined school nutrition. And if it wasn't to try to serve as many meals as possible, then hopefully we can take a look at ourselves, because at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that we create this great experience with every single student through food, that when they come, they know it's a safe place, they're going to be fed, and they're going to always leave full if that's what they want. And that's why we do it. And so if it's a little bit of extra work, it's going to be extra work for us. But, you know, I had a superintendent that said that sometimes it's okay for adults to be uncomfortable for the betterment of a child.
Wow, what great words to end on. Thank you so much for all that you do every day to feed kids. Thank you for sharing of your time with other districts across the nation. And just thank you for sharing your honest experiences. After this webinar, where y'all will receive a poll, it's a survey on the webinar so that you can give us input and how we can improve our process too. And then you will receive this slide deck that has resources and contact information. And if anything, you have a question that you want me to pass on to Ryan or Warren, or if you're interested in getting their contact information, just reach out. And thank you again for joining. We appreciate all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.